What happens when three runners
from different parts of the country
with different running stories
all get together?
Pure
RunTok
madness.
So listen in as we talk about all things running related.
And some things that maybe aren't running related.
As it's bound to be a good time. This is
RunTok Live. Welcome to another episode of RunTok Live. Chase, how are you, man?
Doing fantastic. We're down a person right now, but he's just running late. He'll be with us here shortly. Dude was traveling to Denver. Jake was. For those of you who don't know, who haven't listened to the podcast before, that's where his home office is for his work. So he has to go there every now and then. But his flight got delayed, so he's running a little bit behind tonight.
See, it's hard to relate because in Texas right now, it's in the 60s. So on my run today, it was 65 and sunny, and I'm sure in Denver there's a heck ton of snow.
No, I'm not sure what it's like out there right now. Yeah, it's cold right now in Indiana. We're kind of yesterday was really cold. Today I did get back into shorts. I was supposed to have a track workout, but I was on the track, but I kind of felt my calf tightening up again, so I backed off and ended up just doing an easy 8 instead. But it was really nice weather. The sun was out. I was wearing shorts again, but I definitely needed my sock hat on to keep my ears warm.
Jeez, yeah, I just looked up Denver weather, and it's 32 degrees right now.
Freezing.
Yeah, for them. I'm sure that's amazing skiing weather. I have a friend who actually just moved from Denver, and she had a ski pass. She would just, ice skating, all that business. And I'm like, we get snow once a year, and it's never the cute, cuddly snow. It's the gross ice.
Yeah, I think that's just a part of being in Texas, right?
There's something wrong with this state. I love Texas, but there's something wrong.
Wasn't the Dallas Marathon this past weekend?
Yes. Oh my gosh. There were a couple of celebrities that ran the Dallas Marathon or the Ultra. For the listener who's heard of Callum Neff actually won the 50K, and there was no competition. And I didn't realize he ran until I saw the results, and just crushed the JFK 50-miler, set the 50K record, came to Dallas and just destroyed.
Right on.
But
pretty cool.
It was fun. I got to volunteer on Friday at the 1-mile race, so it was really nice to not run for a change and to just kind of cheer people on.
Yeah, we've talked about that on here before. I've said that when I went to grandma's to spectate. That was a lot of fun, a lot more fun than I realized. So I think with us being so involved in the sport, it's more than just running. So it's really nice to take part in something else.
For sure. Well, speaking of taking part in something, we have a guest this week.
That's right, we do.
Yeah, he's one of the coolest runners on TikTok. He's pretty well known, I feel like. Fantastic running coach, just gives the best advice. So, RunTok, please welcome Eric McIntyre.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey,
we're great, man. How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Honored to be a guest on the RunTok Live podcast.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're honored to be.
Not to brag, but I feel like we're one of the top running podcasts on Spotify right now.
So to go ahead and touch on that real quick, this for the listener, in case you're a Spotify person, you may know this past week was the Spotify Wrapped Day, right? If you're a Spotify person, you know that once a year Spotify puts out a fancy little video that shows you all the music that you listened to for the past year. Well, unbeknownst to us, because this was our first year as a podcast, they do a podcast Spotify Wrapped, where they give us all of the analytics that have gone into our podcast for the past year, who's been listening, where you guys have been listening from, what our age demographic was. And Carolyn, I don't know about you, but I was blown away by some of those numbers.
And honestly, when I posted about it, there were several people that were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you had a podcast. So we have more listeners from that. It's been crazy.
And it's all real big thanks to the RunTok community as a whole. I mean, you guys are amazing. We started this out as a live show on Tuesday nights that, became this podcast, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. We've had a lot of great guests. So I know we kind of got off the rails there a little bit. We'll get back to our guest, Eric, but he is a part of our amazing RunTok community. So just wanted to thank everybody on that one.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job, honestly. I do say it's an honor to be on here, especially considering some of the guests that you guys have been able to pull, and the people that you've interviewed. It's really impressive. And as probably 99% of running creators, I've thought about starting a podcast at some point, right? But I think it's really, really difficult. And I don't think that people realize the amount of work that you guys are probably putting in to not just have fresh content all the time, but to also be able to pull in the people and have those, have that communication. And, what do you do if someone bails? You've got to have a backup plan. And and I know it's a lot of work. And so, and I know that you guys, as far as I know, you don't monetize it, and you guys, are doing this out of the goodness of your hearts, like you did the original RunTok lives. And I think that's really cool, because I think you guys are big contributors to the RunTok community and have kept it a pretty safe space for, new runners as they come in. So I certainly appreciate what you guys do for real.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. And that's, of course, as Carolyn would say, that's always our goal too. That's what we've been trying to aspire to. We want to make this a safe space. And I think in a world where, sometimes social media, I think all of us can agree that social media has definitely got its negatives, but man, when we see the positives, those positives are awesome.
For sure. Eric, you might actually be one of our last guests for 2023, so that's amazing.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Whoa,
yeah.
Closing out the year for us.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure for us. You're probably just chilling, and we're like, shoot.
I did not. That's true. I didn't even realize. Excuse me. I didn't realize that. But yeah, as potentially your last guest in 2023, or one of them, again, even more honored that you guys would pull me in for the New Year's festivities.
Okay, so I gotta ask. So for the listener who can't see, Eric is wearing a Jazz shirt. 2 questions.
Yes.
Are you from Utah, and why the Jazz?
Am I from Utah? No. But do I live in Utah? Yes. The question, where are you from, is it's weird. It's probably one of the hardest questions I ever get in my life, because I'm mixed, right? I'm half Japanese, I'm half American. My dad grew up in small town California. If anyone knows where Visalia is, that's where my dad grew up. It's kind of where McFarlane, USA, the movie, great running movie, right? That's kind of around Visalia, real small town, kind of farm town. So that's where my dad grew up. But him and my mom ended up going to school here in Utah, and we've always had some family here in Utah. And I lived here a little bit when I was a kid, but I've just kind of been bouncing back and forth. When I was a kid, I bounced back and forth between basically Japan and Utah for the majority of my life, until finally, when it was time to go to college. I actually started in Hawaii, but ended up finishing off here in Utah, and that's where I met my wife, and we've been here since. So, I should probably just say I'm from Utah at this point, but as that was where most of my connections were stateside, the Jazz were just kind of a byproduct of that. So I've been a Jazz fan ever since the Stockton and Malone days. We are not as good as we were back then right now, rebuilding year, but we're going to pay our dues, get our draft picks, and hopefully in a few more years we'll be back in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I was born in Florida, and then I spent most of my life in Indiana. So I've got a soft spot in my heart for the Magic, and I always will. But at the end of the day, I'm an Indiana boy, so I'm a Pacers guy.
That's a good basketball state, man. It's a real good
I
basketball
mean, it
state.
is, right? It's why I mean, I have to love basketball. It's been engineered into like my food since I moved here.
All right. So, Hawaii for college?
Yeah.
What kind of inspired that?
So I don't talk about this at all, on my account because I try and keep it like purely running. I don't go into my personal life a whole lot because I just don't feel like it's super relevant to a lot of the content that I do. But I grew up Mormon, and where I stand today, I don't know, is the honest truth. But that's my background. So all those awkward BYU student interviews that are all over TikTok, that's my alma mater. That's where I graduated school. So when I was graduating high school, I was in Japan. And for those of people who don't know, it's like if you're basically Mormon growing up and you're going to go to college, it's kind of like, hey, are you going to BYU? Like that's kind of like the assumption. Like you probably are trying to get into BYU because tuition for members of the church is like crazy cheap. Like crazy cheap. I'm talking like $2,000 a semester. At least it was when I was going, right? And it's like, and the business school is like really good. The accounting program is typically like one of the top programs in the nation. The business school is typically ranked in some of the top programs or top schools in the nation. So like it's a good university. And so when I was graduating high school, it kind of came down to, well, do I want to go to BYU or do I want to go to BYU Hawaii? Because they do have a Hawaii campus. They also have an Idaho campus, but I didn't want to go there. And and I actually grew up playing basketball. So I played competitive my whole life, played overseas in Japan during high school and all that. And I actually was pretty good back in the day and had a chance to potentially play some college basketball, but I was doing all of my own recruiting, right? Being 5'10", half Japanese and playing against oftentimes guys who were smaller than me, with the exception of the military bases there overseas. My highlight reels were good, but like again, they were against like other kids who were like 5'7". So I was doing.
I want to
my
get this
own...
straight. Hold on, I want to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
I want to get the sales pitch right. So you were going around trying to convince a bunch of colleges that they should sign a basketball player who was 5'8", half Japanese, Mormon.
It's worse. It's worse because it was 5'10", by the way, 5'10", half Japanese, right? And like with like no legitimate accolade or way to like measure the performance whatsoever. Yeah. That was my email pitch, right? So I was literally emailing college coaches saying like, hey, take a chance on me, right? I emailed some D1 schools. In hindsight, I wasn't good enough. Right. I emailed some D2 schools, some junior colleges, some D3 schools, and I got a couple of emails back actually, right? Where they saw enough in the highlight film where they were like, okay, maybe there's something here, right? So I got an email back from Dixie State, which is now Utah Technical College. They're a D2 school. At the time, I believe they were D3 though. I got an email back from BYU Hawaii, right? And they were D2 at the time. They actually don't have sports programs anymore, but they were D2 at the time. And both of them kind of said the same thing. Oh, and I got one from Utah Valley University, which was a small D1 school here in Utah. But again, same thing. The conversation was all like, hey, we see something, maybe, but you got to come try out. Like you're invited to our open tryout, but that's only open to current students. So like if you want to try and make the team, you got to enroll, you got to come to school. So out of all of the schools there, I could go to Southern Utah, which now I think is gorgeous. Like there's like, it's just red rock and warm 90% of the year. And like, I was like, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that would have been pretty cool. At least now as a runner. Right. But then back then I was like, no, I don't want to go there. I could have gone to, Utah Valley University, but if I was going to go there, it's like down the street from BYU. It's like, I might as well just go to BYU. And then there's BYU Hawaii. And I'm like, well, worst case scenario, I don't make the team and I'm in Hawaii. So like, that's pretty freaking nice. And so I decided to roll the dice and I went to Hawaii. And what it came down to was I applied for scholarships too, for academic scholarships. And I said, if I get a scholarship to BYU, I'll go to BYU because that's too good of an education to turn down. If I don't, I'm taking the chance and going to Hawaii. The scholarship didn't show up. I committed to Hawaii. I emailed the coach, said, "Hey, I'm coming. Let me know when tryouts are." And then the next day, the scholarship offer arrived in the mail from BYU. And I'm the kind of person, like, once I've made my decision, like, I can't go back. Like, I feel like everything happens for a reason. So I made that decision. I went to Hawaii, and it actually worked out. I walked on to that team. I made it. And then they redshirted me, and I was a glorified water boy for a year, and that was the extent of my college basketball career.
Wow.
So yeah, 1 year in Hawaii. I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I got to, as a red shirt, because the team was really small, I got to film the games. But I did get all the practice gear, and yeah, that was about it. So yeah.
That's
So we're in
interesting.
So you're a basketball star, is what you're trying to tell us.
Oh, not anymore. Not anymore.
Oh,
And you know what? The same way that I think TikTok and social media has just really kind of changed the running world and given so much access to information and just all that stuff out there. I look back at how good I was, coming out of high school and playing in college that year. And I look at the kids now and like the things that they're doing now and how good they are at basketball now. And I'd have no shot today. If you just go like comparing where they're at today. And it's just like that accessibility of information. I used to like scour YouTube for any type of like skills training videos that I could find. I had a video of Mike Conley doing dribbling drills, and like that was like my Bible. And I had Steve Nash DVDs, and like that's how we got it done. But nowadays, I mean, you go online and there's skills trainers everywhere sharing some phenomenal information. It's like, man, what I could have done with that info, right? But yeah, it's a different world.
sounds like it. So I have a question. So you started out with basketball. How did that transition into running?
Oh, depression. uh,
Same.
Depression, anxiety, life stress. I hated running for so long. And I used to joke because I would lift weights for a while, and so basically I played a year of college basketball, redshirted, never got on the floor, right? And then I realized that my future was not in the NBA, and decided to transfer over here to Utah to get a better education, right? Because the school was just a little better here. Um, and just kind of got caught up in like trying to do the whole corporate life thing, and put on some weight. Did get a job. I started my work, or my career in financial services. Actually, I was a financial advisor for about 4 years, but I was working like 12-plus hour days. I wasn't working out really. I would lift occasionally, but no cardio whatsoever. It was always bulking season, was kind of the joke, right? It's always bulking season. And then it was actually through Spartan racing that my dad and my brother invited me to do a Spartan race, and I thought, hey, that's a cool idea. I ended up doing a Spartan race, absolutely fell in love with it, got a hernia, and had to have surgery. And it was kind of my wake up call of like, hey, it's time to take care of yourself. And so I decided I was going to get back from that surgery rehab and then start training for Spartan. And it was in that training that I thought, hey, I should probably start running to get better at that, because it really is a running race with obstacles. Went to the trails, and because I still hated road running and wouldn't run on a treadmill, went to the trails though, and just absolutely fell in love with being outside and being on the trails, and just all the the mountain ridges. Living here in Utah, I've got really easy access. And after doing that and starting to see improvement, it just eventually became like, hey, I really like running. And then all of a sudden I could do it on the road, I could do it on the treadmill. And I just fell in love with the process, right? It took a while, but once I got into it and once I started to see that improvement, I thought to myself, well, I want to actually get better at this. And so I started to look into how to get better. And then, now we're here, right?
So for Spartan races, I have to say, what is your favorite Spartan race distance, and what is your favorite obstacle?
Oh, my favorite distance, honestly, it might be the ultra distance. It might be the Spartan ultra distance because it's so unique, right? Like, and I ran a Spartan Super and Spartan Sprint this weekend, and it was in California, in Northern California near Sacramento. They were really fast races, like all out from the get-go. Like, you don't really have a chance to stop and slow down and enjoy the course because you're just, balls to the wall trying to redline and get across the finish line before everyone else does. But in the Spartan Ultras, like you can't do that. And so you end up enjoying the course a lot more. It's a different type of challenge. And what's really, really cool is when you do a Spartan Ultra, it's the same course usually as, all the other athletes who are running the Spartan Beast, which is the half marathon, the super, or the sprint. Oftentimes they're run on the same day. It's just you're doing the extended course. So as you come through, you have a purple bib to identify you as an ultra racer, so people can kind of give you the right of way if you're on an obstacle, things like that. And it's just really cool because the whole Spartan community really rallies behind the ultra athletes as they're going through. And so your name for that day, or that, however long it takes you, is Ultra, right? And so they'll just say like, Ultra coming through, like, you got this, Ultra, way to go, Ultra. And it's just really, really cool. And it's hard as hell. It's a 50K distance usually, and usually about 60 obstacles, and you start cramping in areas that you didn't know were possible. But it's so fun, and it's such a unique challenge. That I have to say that the Spartan Ultra is probably my favorite distance. Now, as far as favorite obstacle goes, I really like, they just call it the multi-rig, which it's typically any combination of like rings, a bar, some ropes, different things. It's just like, what attracted me to Spartan initially was like the Ninja Warrior idea, like being able to go and, go to the ninja gym and play around on obstacles. It's just fun. Like, I've always loved that, right? And so just being able to hang out, literally swinging from stuff and hanging from the obstacle, it's a good time.
I just learned something new, Eric, because I didn't know there were multiple distances in Spartan races. So that's by the way, hi. And yeah, that's how little
That's
I know.
right, everybody. Nick's here.
Welcome.
Sorry
I
about
think-
that.
How
But no,
was the flight, the delayed flight?
way too long. I've been traveling since 1 o'clock East Coast time, and I just got to my hotel, and it's 7 p.m. here in Denver, 9 p.m. my time in Florida.
It's funny, and it sounds awful, but me and Eric were talking earlier about traveling back and forth from Japan, so I think we got you beat.
Could be worse.
Yeah, and you just mentioned you were out in Sacramento, Eric. Fun fact, if you didn't know it, that's actually where I'm from. This is a little bit north of
Oh, yeah?
Sacramento, but I went to CSU
Are you
Sacramento.
a Kings fan?
Die hard. They're playing tonight and against the Clippers, second time. So yeah, I'm a diehard Kings fan. Are you? Are you a
Love it.
are you
Light
a
the
Jazz
beam,
fan?
man. I'm a Jazz fan. Yeah, we've talked about, but yeah, I'm a Jazz fan. And but I'm a basketball fan in general, especially this year where the Jazz are harder to watch. I just genuinely enjoy watching basketball games, like, as a whole. It's just fun. So
Oh, I'm die hard with my Kings. I purchased the NBA package strictly so I can watch my Kings games because I live in Florida where the only way I can watch them is if I buy an NBA package. But I'm die hard with them. So that's good. That's awesome.
I
We
love
have that
that.
in common.
He's a Jazz fan, and you're a Kings fan. You got what? What do you got in common?
we got old school beef, right? Talking about the Stockton and Malone days.
Say, what do you
but,
have in common again?
yeah.
Like,
We
aren't you
got
guys like?
basketball. We got basketball in common.
We don't hold the grudges from the 90s. We're good. We've moved on.
Kings have
Yeah,
already
we already
beat
talked about basketball a little bit.
Kings have already
Jake,
beat
'cause-
Utah this year.
So
Do
is
what?
everyone else, though.
Yeah, they did.
So.
I had to watch my Pacers get rigged out of that in-season tournament job.
It did feel like there was a certain narrative going on there, right?
It did, didn't it?
It
Didn't
did.
it? Anyway,
Yeah.
Well,
speaking
And you
of
know what
winning
you-
awards, let's go to running. We can go ahead and cut back to running. They did announce the World Athletics Championship awards winners today. I don't know if you guys saw it, but on the women's side, we had Faith Kipyegon, very well deserved. She set the world record in the 1500, the mile, and the 5000 this year, and won gold at World Championships in the 15 and the 5. So I don't see how that could be argued. On the men's side, Noah Lyles took it. He had the world's fastest time in the 100 and the 200, as well as winning gold in both of those at the World Championships this year. So congratulations to those two.
That's awesome.
It always
Yeah,
blows
actually,
my
I did
mind
not know
what the
that
pros
they
are
announced
capable
that
of.
today, but yeah, I've seen it now.
Pretty incredible.
Noah Lyles, yeah.
Kelvin Kiptum, he did win the out of stadium athlete of the year award or whatever they called it. As did Tig Asifa, who set the women's marathon world record this year.
Yeah, see, there are 6 of them, right? 6 stars named. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think they did.
We need a world championship Spartan award, Eric.
I'm
sure they have one.
Like
they
Eric,
have
yeah,
he won.
I thought they did.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, listeners, let me point out the fact that I know nothing about Spartan races.
Eric, I think we talked about this whenever you came on one of our lives one time, but I went to college with Ryan Kent. I think he's a big Spartan athlete. Like, he's a big pro Spartan athlete.
Yeah, Ryan Kent is a beast, like, in every sense of the word, like absolute monster in sport in general. He's one of the OG Spartan racers, but he's kind of hence transitioned over to more of like the Hyrox world, which I guess we're calling hybrid racing is like the term that, like, Hyrox and Deca, which is interesting. That's an interesting sport in itself too, because it still requires a pretty aggressive pace to win those things, but most of those guys are pretty jacked as well.
Yeah, I didn't know it until like a couple years ago, because I was like, I wasn't in like the Spartan scene or anything like that. And he messaged me on Facebook, and I was like, what have you been up to? And I look, and he's like on magazine covers and in podcasts and radio shows, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, holy crap, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, Ryan Kent was supposed to be the face of DecaFit, which was Spartan's hybrid racing wing that they developed, which I describe Hyrox and DecaFit, for those who don't know it, as like kind of like CrossFit, but without like Olympic lifting in a way. So it's like high intensity workouts, going from station to station, moving from exercise to exercise, and then generally more running involved, right? And he was supposed to be the face of that, and kind of got screwed out of a contract because of COVID. And so I know that's why he transitioned over to being a UPS driver, and then eventually, started doing Hyrox and stuff like that. But it's interesting. Spartan, I think a lot of pure runners kind of look down on Spartan because it's kind of different. And like hybrid racing in general, it is kind of different. But for it's introduced a lot of people like myself who used to hate running, right? Who like really just could not stand running, to the sport, because you kind of get sucked in by this idea of like, oh, that's cool. It's an obstacle course race. That's a lot of fun. But the shortest distance is a 5K. And, while that's not a long race, right? If for someone who doesn't run, 3 miles is still considered distance run. I mean, for runners too, it's middle, I mean, really, we're talking about distance running at this point, right? Right. It's not even, I don't even know if it's not even middle distance. So it's like, for the 5K, like, you show up and you go run these, and most people are like Jacob, right? Like, they don't know that there's different distances. So one of the classic mistakes that a lot of people make is they will sign up for a Spartan Beast as their first race, which is the half marathon distance. And they find out pretty quick that, yeah, there are different distances, and you probably chose the wrong one for your first time.
It's pretty interesting because it's kind of a growing, or at least I see it as a growing kind of subculture of running. We're starting to see more hybrid athletes. Nick Bear, of course, is probably one of the more famous ones right now. But I haven't seen him I don't know that I've seen him do a Spartan race. Have you? Are you fans of Nick Bear?
I'm pretty neutral on Nick Bear. Like, I like some of the content that he puts out. I don't follow him super closely, but I know that he is I'd say he's probably like the poster boy of hybrid athletics right now, right? And he just threw down a pretty great marathon time too.
He did excellent.
Wasn't it like 2:40?
He was 2:39. He got under 2:40. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of pissed off about it, but that's just because I have not got under 2:40 yet. So that's been my goal for like the last 3 years.
Well, and he's pushing some limits I think he's still a Clydesdale athlete too. So like, he's pushing some limits that I think traditionally we've kind of thought were like not really possible. Now I know there's some people who would probably accuse him of using PEDs. I don't know. Like, I don't pretend to know. I think a lot of people are using stuff that we're not aware of, but I also think a lot of pro runners are using stuff, and a lot of people are getting popped for stuff. So all I know is what he did recently is pretty freaking impressive. But yeah, it kind of, I think there's this subculture, and this is again like running has just kind of like blown up on social media as more people are doing like hybrid athletics, hybrid racing, hybrid, Spartan racing, obstacle course racing. It's become more and more popular, just because so many people. And I can't tell you how many people, like when I get inbound like coaching requests, I would say like every third athlete is probably someone who wants to be a hybrid athlete who doesn't just want to run.
I definitely want to. I don't want to be a hybrid athlete, but I want to incorporate more hybrid strength work into my routine. Because 2023 was just a bad year for me, and I just had injuries pile up, and it was because of some neglect on my part. So I really want to fix that moving forward, and that's kind of what I'm envisioning doing.
I think for the most part, I think almost any runner can benefit from a little bit more strength training here or there, right? But I think even like for me, I lift twice a week. I think people think I lift a lot more than I do, because that's kind of like when I first started running, I was lifting probably 6 times a week, right? But I've since cut down because the running is my big weak point that I'm trying to focus more on that. But I found that even just lifting twice a week, you can get a lot of really good stimulus in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing to your earlier point about Nick and PEDs and whatnot, I don't think it's necessarily that. I think he's just got, he's in a situation. He's very fortunate to be in a situation where he can have all of these things provided for him or helping him out. At the end of the day, he's still putting in the work. He's still the one, out there putting in the miles. But you can't say that he's got a bit of an advantage on the diet front, on the strength training front. He's got a lot of resources to pull from that the rest of us don't have. So, but again, not taking anything away from what he did, it was pretty awesome.
I think the most successful hybrid athletes right now, and I would say like one of the OG hybrid athletes, it just like who actually came more from the Spartan space was Hunter McIntyre. Not a lot of people are aware of him. He was like Sports Illustrated 50 most fit people in the world for a while. He was one of the original Spartan Pro Team members. He's multiple time Spartan World Champion, CrossFit Games athlete, High Rocks World Champion, world record holder. Has run some fast marathons. I don't know what his marathon PR is, but I know that he paced Nick Bare for one of his races or something like that. But a lot of these guys too, I think a lot of people want to try and do everything at once. And when you're Nick Bare or Hunter McIntyre, or you are social media famous and you have all these resources, you can maybe do a little bit more. I think more people would benefit from focusing on one aspect and really kind of not perfecting it, but getting really good. Like Nick Bare, before he started doing marathons, he was really damn strong. Right?
Yeah.
He was huge, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like it's so much easier to maintain strength than it is to build strength while trying to run. I don't know what he's running right now, but I would have to assume he's running like at least 60-mile weeks, if not more. So to get the jumps in performance that he's gotten over the last 2-3 years, I have to think he's high mileage. I'd be shocked if he wasn't, right? So
he's got to be. He does log all of his training and everything on YouTube, but I didn't keep up with it.
Go ahead, Chase.
Oh, I was kind of. I think I was done. Like I said, Nick Bare, like most people, he does log most of his training on YouTube, so you can see what his mileage was. But I didn't really keep up with it. What'd you have, Jake?
Eric, I was going to ask, you were at the running event, and if you guys talked about this, I apologize already, but you were at the running event in Texas, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was really fun. Really, really cool.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that? Or what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can tell you as much as you guys want, honestly. So, just to be clear, I did not go based off of what I'll call my own merit. It was not because of my TikTok following, nor my own credibility as a shoe reviewer, that I went there. I actually do the content for my local running store, right? So I run the TikTok for Utah Run, which is a store here located in American Fork, Utah. And they're a small business, and have talked to the owner multiple times, and so they trust my opinion on a lot of the shoes that are coming out. They understand that I have a lot of knowledge around running shoes, and so they kind of brought me on as a semi consultant, and candidly, I told them, I said, hey, if I'm going to work with you guys, you have to take me to TRE. Like it's like Christmas for me. So like I'll pay my way. I don't even know if I can just go buy a ticket. Like, I don't know if you have to be affiliated with a running store or what, but I was like, you guys have to take me. I will pay my way. I'll pay a hotel for the hotel, the flight, everything. But like, I just want to be there. Right. And I was fortunate enough that they said, no, we'll pay for you. And they covered my hotel and everything, and took me there. And really, when we got there too, they were kind of like, hey, have fun. Just like go, do your thing, and, get some content for us too while you're here. Go talk to some of the vendors, make sure you're up to date on like the new tech that's coming out so that you can speak to it as we carry it in store. But like, go have fun. And so I did. And TRE, for those who don't know, it's essentially a giant trade show where all of the running companies come, and they just showcase their products for 2024, at least most of their products. Some of them do have secret shoes that they did not show at TRE. And the only reason I know about some of these secret shoes is because the sales reps who go around and show the shoes to the stores to then, like, so you can decide what your inventory is going to be. They showed us some shoes beforehand at the store that they did not have on hand there because they were hush hush. So I can't talk about every single shoe that's coming out, but I will say that a certain brand has 2 super shoes that are coming out next year that they did not show at the running event, that I'm hoping are going to be my marathon shoes next year. So I won't say brand, I'll just say it's one of the major brands. But
I'll
anyway,
tell you what, there's so much. I mean, we'll get back to the running event here in a second, but I've not read a bad thing about the Alpha Fly 3s yet. So I'm just really excited for those.
Those look really, really nice. And Nike, Nike doesn't
I heard
really
Nike
miss
didn't
on
have a
super
big
shoes.
representation there.
They had one of the bigger booths, but they didn't. Yeah, Nike, what's interesting, right, is it's always interesting to see the brands, like, kind of overall vibes when you go to this event, like who's going to be welcoming, who's going to talk to you, who's going to, take the time to introduce tech and all that. And so, like, Nike, they had a very open concept booth. They had their shoes on display. They didn't have every shoe that they were going to carry, but they had the key ones. So there was, the Zagama 2s, which look really cool. Nike's putting Vibram or Vibram on another one of their trail shoes, which I think is a big deal. They had the Alpha Fly 3s. They had the Nike Pegasus Trail 5. They had the Nike Vomeros. I forget the number, the new one that just released. But that was about it. That was like kind of all they showcased. So they had more of a booth that was like educational on the history, and they had some of the test models of the shoes and whatnot, like the MVPs and stuff like that of the shoes, and that people had tested and used and developed, right? And there were reps there that would talk to you, and I talked to one, and Nike's actually trying really hard to come out with their own compound that's gonna be able to compete with Vibram, because they have heard all of the people trashing their own compound that they've been using over the last few years on the trails. They're aware of it, very aware of it. And so they're trying a couple of things, specifically in the Pegasus Trail 5, you'll see the new compound on the outsole. I actually tested the Pegasus Trail 5. I was part of their beta test project, or their beta test. I'm not a huge fan. But that was like one of the past iterations. So the final product might be good. We'll see, right? But then other brands like Hoka had the large majority of their shoes. They had various different shoe walls. They had tech reps. They had sales reps. I actually recorded some cool videos with their PR team and their PR team and their product team, just for Utah Run. I asked them, like, hey, what's your running rotation with your own shoes? Like, the Tecton X3 looks phenomenal. The other shoe that Hoka's coming out with that's pretty cool, the Mach X2, major upgrade over the Mach X. I was not a fan of the Mach X. The Mach X2, I did try it on feet. Feels a lot better, just the way that they're using the PIBA. And then they're coming out with another shoe that is kind of like, everyone knows, like, there's the Hoka girlies, right? Like the Clifton Bondi, now Gaviota too. So the Hoka girlies, right? So like Clifton Bondi have kind of become more of like casual wear, right? Than they have running shoes. And I think that Hoka is kind of catered to that from like how they're doing the shoe setup on those. So they actually they're coming out with another shoe, and this one's not a secret, that is essentially like the runner version of the Clifton Bondi. So it's same general setup as far as like stack height. It's got a little bit more aggressive of a rocker. The look of it is a little bit more sporty, less casual. And the foam is actually, I think it's a super critical EVA as opposed to the standard EVA, so it's a little bit bouncier. But TRE, really, really cool. Got to see like basically the large majority of the shoes coming out for next year, and lots of really exciting things. The biggest takeaway that I had is that when it comes to daily training, like just standard daily trainers, every brand has it figured out at this point, right? Like, I think like 5 years ago, there were some pretty crappy daily trainers on the market. I think now, when it comes to like supercritical foams, rocker patterns, just like general stability, like shoes that are built to last long miles, like everyone really has it figured out and has kind of a really strong daily trainer, to the point where even Reebok, who's relaunching their running line in 2024 and have dubbed 2024 their year of run, Reebok gave me, and everyone there could get the shoe for free. It was the Reebok's Float Zig 1, which is going to be the daily trainer coming out. And even that, it's like their first attempt at a daily trainer in probably a decade. I ran in that this morning, and I like it quite a bit. It's like pretty comfortable. So
I did hear some good things about Reebok from the event, so that's cool. How many days were you there? Were you there 1 or the 2?
I was only there, I was like 1.5. So I spent all day. I flew in Tuesday night, and they had a bunch of like info sessions Tuesday that I missed. But got there Tuesday night, and then all day Wednesday I was at the expo, and then half day Thursday basically was at the expo as well. And yeah, just spent the day talking to tech reps and nerding out on running shoes.
Two new shoes, Eric.
I'm stealing this from another place, but
yeah, I was going to say two new shoes that I'm actually really excited about. I don't know if you got to see them or not, but the new Pumas that are coming out next year, the Fast R Nitro Elite 2s, and then the New Balance, the Fuel Cell Super Comp Pacer V2s. Those ones I'm really looking forward to testing, hopefully with the company that I run for here.
Those are two brands that I didn't get to talk to a ton of. Their booths just weren't set up like super well to find like the tech reps. New Balance, I'm really curious to see what happens with them in 2024, because I'm sure you guys have seen all of their shoes look almost identical in 2024. And the midsole geometry is it's different. So they've kind of gone away from everything they've been doing over the last few years, that has kind of made them successful. So we'll see. I'm not saying that they're bad. I haven't tried them on. I think they look great, but I'll be curious to see how they perform. But they do look cool. And then Puma, that's got to be one of the weirdest super shoes I've ever seen in my life. Literally has the carbon plate sticking out of the front of the shoe. Yeah. So
I feel like Puma is one of those brands that I've wanted to be excited about for like 3 years now. They keep coming, and I don't know if it's the running event, I don't know where it's at, but I feel like they keep coming out with stuff that makes you go, and then it gets delayed. There's issues with it, and so I'm just waiting for Puma to, follow through with what we're promising every year.
I have like 40 plus pairs of running shoes at this point. And so I can't run in every brand, but I've run in most brands. And when it comes to Puma, I just have not been that interested personally. Like, there's definitely some good feedback on some of their shoes, but they haven't been able to pull me in, despite some of their funky looking midsoles and things like that. So we'll see. Maybe 2024 will be different, and I'll have to grab myself a pair too. But yeah, we'll see if they follow through on kind of delivery dates and production dates like they've said. So TBD.
So based off what you saw at the running event, what brand are you most excited about and why?
I like what Brooks is doing. Brooks admitted, like, I talked to their sales rep actually on last Thursday, the local rep here, and she admitted that Brooks has just not been the most innovative over the last few years, and they've kind of stayed steady. But Brooks, in my mind, has always been a really high quality shoe, right? And they put a lot of care and a lot of love in their product, and I think they do a great job fostering a great community, right? I think that 2024 may be their year. They need to figure out. We'll see if they figured out DNA Flash, right? They're supercritical foam, still nitrogen infused. They're really committed to the whole nitrogen infused thing, right? But the Hyperion Max and the Hyperion Elite coming out this year both look really, really cool, at least visually. I haven't tried them on, but look really, really cool. They've increased the stack height on the Hyperion Max 2. Has a pretty aggressive rocker, so like I'm excited to try that one. That's coming out early this year, I think in March, April. And then they're coming out with a really aggressive trail shoe called the Catamount Agile, which it kind of looks almost like a Solomon a little bit as far as like the overall silhouette of the shoe, but it's a really big step in the right direction, I think, for them, as well as the Caldera 6 or 7. Looks a lot more stable in the past, where I've been kind of straight, like, not been a huge fan of that shoe. So they just, with the Ghost Max this year too, they're starting to cater more to the general market, I think. And in the past, I think they've been more like legacy runner, especially with the high heel to toe drops. And so now with the Brooks Ghost Max, with the Hyperion series, with the Ghost Max 2 that's coming out too, right? I think they just are going to appeal more generally to the larger market, which I'm excited about because I really like them as a brand. So I'm excited for them to hopefully get more fans, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been eyeballing the Ghost Max myself, and I've been looking at the same thing. You mentioned it, the high heel to toe drop, but Brooks has kind of been coming down to that. The Brooks Max, or the Ghost Max, I think has 5 or 6 millimeter heel to toe drop, so kind of right in my comfort zone. So I've been kind of looking at that, but it'll be interesting to see what they come out with.
So
and
I'm on.
I was going to tell you to go ahead and talk your shit, Carolyn.
No, so Eric, I'm on the team, and their Ghost Max, like when they came out with that, they hit it hard. Like they marketed it to so many celebrities, just so now everybody's excited about it. I have a pair of the Ghost Max. They're my go-to recovery day shoe, easy day, long run. And then they're also kind of branching out as well. So I'm also beta testing a shoe that they're working on with HP. It's called the Exhilarate BL, I think, HL, one of those two, where it's like 3D printed, like everything is 3D printed about it.
You got one. It was you're part of the test group, so am I, and I didn't qualify for it, and I was really, really bummed. But that's not going to be general release either, right? Like that's purely a beta product that you get to keep. That's really cool. I'm jealous. That's a nice shoe.
And it's a fast shoe. I will say though, I put my regular size in on the form. They sent me my regular size, and it turns out you have to size up. So I'm kind of, it's hard to be unbiased when like if they're like run a long run in these shoe, and after 4 miles I have a blister.
Yeah.
The shoe quality itself is great, but you definitely have to size up.
Sounds like a Brooks shoe to me, pretty much. So.
Jake, come.
Now, y'all know, any of those longtime listeners to the podcast know that as soon as Eric said good things about Brooks, Carolyn was over there in the corner, just like she was ready to just lay into us.
If I had known I was going to know Eric's answer, sorry guys, I wouldn't have brought him on. So shoot.
Well, but to be fair, right? To be fair, the reason why I'm excited about Brooks is because they are making changes, right? Because they are taking strides to improve kind of their general product offering. So we'll see. They could fall flat on that promise. They could, but I was pretty excited about what I saw from them. I'd say the other brand that they're not really a sleeper pick at all. I mean, they're kind of the powerhouse these days, Hoka, right? Hoka's coming out with some really cool stuff. Some really, really cool stuff, both on trail and on road. Um, the models like the Speed Goat they're coming out with Speed Goat 6. It's a Speed Goat. Like it gets the job done and does it very well. Tecton X3 is looking phenomenal. And some other things I can't speak about are going to be really exciting from them. So we'll leave it there.
Right on. Yeah, I heard good things about Hoka. I heard good things about Adidas. I think. Yeah, I think Adidas is coming out with some good stuff.
Yeah, I have not run a lot in Adidas, to be honest. So I can't speak a ton about what they've been and what they're doing or like how they're changing, but I did get a chance to test out the Supernova Rise. I actually went on a group run with Kofuzi, which was really cool. I didn't talk to him too much because like everyone wanted to talk to Kofuzi. And that's where you like realize like there's like, hey, I have some TikTok following, but like Kofuzi is like next level. Like everybody knew Kofuzi. And but yeah, no, like that it was same thing about daily trainers. Like it's another daily trainer, has some PIBA based foam in it. I think they call it Light Strike foam, right, for Adidas. And like was a super comfortable shoe, like super bouncy, very stable. So they're doing some cool things. They've got an awesome trail shoe coming out, which I'm tempted to buy.
I did hear about their trail shoe. Yeah,
it's hard when a lot of companies are stepping up their trail game, which is nice to see because that's where my heart lies. Despite going after some fast marathons next year, like my heart will always be on trail. It's always where I'm going to go back to. So when I look at, I like posted today or yesterday like the shoes that I was most excited for that I saw at TRE, and I didn't realize until after that like only one was a road shoe and the rest were trail.
I'm actually eyeballing my first trail ultra next year, so we'll see. I don't know. I'm trying to decide between the 50K and the 50 mile. I don't know if I should just jump right into it or kind of ease myself into it.
Just go for it.
Just do it. Go home, Chase. Come on.
50 miles.
When it comes to ultras, if you're not worried if you're going to DNF or not, you're not doing it right. Right. So it's like, you can finish a 50K, and I believe you can finish a 50 miler too, but like you got to at least put some risk in there. Right.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Hey, Eric, did we talk about Chicago? And
not yet. No.
So
what's Chicago?
Have you decided what you want to do? Are you going to try to go the charity route? How are we going to get you there?
I don't know. So I had set in my mind, you guys know how it is, right? You like set up, you set up your race schedule for the year and you're like, okay, I'm hitting grandma's and I'm registered for that, paid way too much for a hotel and flights, but we're going. But we're going to grandma's. And then I had Chicago, right? That was the plan. And of course, it was my first year applying, so I shouldn't have expected to get in. And I didn't, like most people, right? I know all three of you guys got in, right? But so as I've thought about like, man, do I want to go to the charity route or should I just figure out a different race? It was bad timing because I got that rejection. And then a few days later, I flew out to California and ran some Spartan races. And every time I tell myself I'm done with Spartan, like every time I spend too much time away from them because, I want to focus on other things. I'm the type of person who wants to do a little bit of everything. So I was so committed in my mind to, I'm going to go after sub 3, and I'm still going after sub 3 because I've got grandma's, right? But I was so committed to sub 3, like 2024 was going to be my marathon year. I was just going to focus all on road, kind of take a break from the trail so I can work on my running, my running economy, just my overall efficiency. And then I got rejected from Chicago, and then I went and ran basically trail races and was like, man, I love the trail so much. And now it's got me thinking like, man, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should just go sign up for a 50 mile ultra instead on the trail. I live in Utah. There's no shortage of ultras around here, no shortage of trails. And so part of me is just like, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe I should just go run some trail. And then part of me is like, no, but what if you don't break 3 in grandma's, which frankly, I don't think it's based off of where I'm at. I don't know if I have what it takes to get sub 3 in June yet. I might need a couple more months, and so that's why I was signing up for 2, right? And so I'm like, but I really do want to break sub 3 or break 3. So I'm split. I'm sitting on the fence, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Well, I need to make a decision soon though, because if we're gonna go the charity route, we got to start raising that money, right? So yeah.
Well, if you're looking for a replacement, Jake and I ran a good race here earlier this year that Jake was able to run a pretty good time at. Indianapolis.
Which one was
Yeah.
that?
Indianapolis
Yeah,
Monumental.
Indianapolis.
How's the weather?
It's been surprisingly warm the last couple of years, which is uncharacteristic because it's normally like crazy freaking cold.
Because I'll say that is my one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say this, Eric. I did a marathon ranking video not too long ago. Chase saw it, and that climbed into my top 5 marathons.
Wow.
It was a phenomenal course. Number one, flat and fast. I think Chase has a good point. Weather can be a major factor there because I think we got lucky with the weather this year. I don't know, Chase, tell me if I'm wrong, but I know the years prior, it's been incredibly windy and cold and rainy. But this year, it was
this
great.
year is pretty
Like,
good. We got pretty lucky. A little too warm for my taste still, but I mean, it wasn't bad.
See, I can do cold. Being in Utah, I'm used to running in the cold here, and actually some of my favorite runs are just running in the snow on the trail, and just not caring about pace, right? Just kind of trudging along. It's gorgeous out there, but my weakness is heat, especially like humidity, and so even grandma's I'm nervous about, honestly, because that part of the country is just more humid.
Yeah, no, I signed up for grandma's this past year. I don't know if you are familiar with it or not, but I ended up having to not do grandma's because I was trying to make sure I was healthy for Berlin. But yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. Like I was not interested in doing a marathon in June, and honestly, it was still pretty warm up there in Duluth. I still went up there and watched the race, and it was still pretty warm. So, not to scare you or anything, but they did say it's a beautiful course, and Duluth is a pretty town. So I'm sure it'll be a good time.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I'm excited for it. I still have never run a road marathon just because I spent so much time on trail. Like I've run trail marathons, I've read trail ultra, Spartan ultras, like that kind of stuff, but never just said I'm going to focus on pure speed and just go crazy on a marathon and flat and fast. So that's why I chose grandma's, because it's flat and fast. But really, Chicago was the one I had my eye on and said that was going to be sub 3 given the weather and the race itself. So we'll see. I gotta put some thought into it, but either way, I'm running a marathon next year, and I may run a 50-miler on top of it. We'll see.
Not to persuade you, but Billy, so for the listener, I run Chicago, and I are planning the RunTok meetup at Chicago next year.
So, this is news, real life news right now.
You heard it here first.
All right. Got the live news. Carolyn's cheating on the RunTok crew with I Run Chicago for.
When does the podcast launch with Billy?
Oh, we're doing the party, the RunTok Live party.
she's gonna start doing a podcast with Billy on the side.
You got to set
what this means. You know what this means, guys? This is going to be a Brooks themed RunTok Live party.
Yeah, it is.
The way they're changing their shoes, it might be you might be the odd man out. Who knows?
Yeah, they've been changing their shoes. You know what, Eric? I hope you're right about Brooks, and I hope they blow me away in 2024 and they change my mind. But Carolyn's story about having to size up and getting blisters, that's why.
So I did just get the new glycerin that's coming out, or has just come out. And already I can feel like that's a big step up from last year's model. At least that's my opinion. So something to look out for. Again, it's a 10 millimeter heel to toe drop. My foot tends to like more of that 5.6 too, but they're pretty comfortable. So I'm going to do some testing, and I'll get a review up for it too. But But yeah, no, I'll tell you guys, I got my first taste of like RunTok like meetups kind of when I was at TRE. I met the Realistic Runner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She,
So
she
Yeah,
just
she
got 2,000 followers.
yeah. So I saw, it was funny, we were just standing there because I was in the on booth, and I was looking at kind of some of the models that they were coming out with, and I kind of saw her walk around, and I was like, is that her? I'm not sure if that's her. And we made eye contact, and then we both kind of went like tilted our heads like, huh? And then when we realized, we were like, oh, sick. So we went and we talked to each other and had a good time. And it just like, that was the first time that I'd actually ever like, I should say second time, but first time that I had met someone who was like kind of, doing their own thing on RunTok and all that, and was really cool. So it got me hungry for some more to like meet up with people in real life. And because I'm kind of a lone wolf out here in Utah, I don't really like, there's not really a lot of people on RunTok who are out here, and I see other people doing all these meetups everywhere, and I got some FOMO. So but there is Mary who lives here. She actually lives like down the street from me, but she's on RunTok. Mary Grace, I think, is her last name. But shout out to RunTok in general, because I did an Everesting attempt at the end of last year, like last October or something like that. And I was not live streaming, but posting on my story as I was doing it. And I kind of just put it out there. I was like, look, I'm hurting. If anyone wants to come and do a lap with me, I was doing it on the local mountain and just going back like up and down, up and down. I've been at it for about 11 hours. And she showed up. She messaged me, she sent me a DM, said, hey, do you still want someone to come help? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And she showed up, and she actually saw me shut it down and was there for like half a lap with me, because I started to wobble and was getting kind of nauseous and wasn't going to make it. But she showed up. And so that was the first time I was like, man, RunTok, like this TikTok thing is real. Like this is pretty cool. So I'm a big fan of the RunTok community as a whole.
It is, and Jake, before you came on earlier, we did kind of talk about the Spotify Wrapped that we got for the podcast earlier this week, and how me and Carolyn were so impressed with some of the numbers, and just very appreciative to all of our listeners and all of RunTok in general, whether they're listening to the podcast or not, because that's where we all met. That's where this whole thing started, and it's just an amazing community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, you mentioned that you met the Realistic Runner. She's actually one of the accounts. Every so often, like every 3 or 4 months, I'll do a video, and I'll do these are the accounts you need to follow on TikTok video. And she was one of the ones that I was like, yeah, everyone should be following the Realistic Runner. And I posted about her on there. Really cool stuff. So
yeah, she is pretty awesome. I'll say, like, for anyone who doesn't follow her, I second that. Like, they should be following her. Was really cool. Like, the running community as a whole, like the running industry, can be kind of elitist, right? I mean, we all know that, right? And like myself being a running coach, like a lot of times I get crap from people because they're like, how are you a running coach? Like, one, you don't look like a runner. Two, you're not fast. And I'm like, yeah, I never claimed to be fast, and I don't know what a runner's supposed to look like, but I am one. So, but what was really cool, she did a post recently, because she did the 5K. There was a 5K this on Thursday morning of TRE, and she did the 5K, and she was like the third to last finisher or something like that. And at the event, this is like the running industry, the running event, right? And she said that there were like no volunteers at the finish or like anything. Like when she got there, like she was so far behind everyone else, the race had basically shut down at that point, right? And so she like crossed the finish line, a couple other people crossed the finish line, and there wasn't really anyone there to like cheer them on. And she made a post about that and kind of called out the running industry. And I think it's like, I think that's like what she's doing. I don't think she realized when she started, and it's kind of taken a life of its own right now. But like, running is becoming more and more popular, and running is like a right that humans have, in my opinion, right? Like, some can run more than others, right? Some, whether it's because of weight or injury or something else, like maybe have to run a little bit less. But like, if you want to run, you should be able to run, and we should be able to celebrate that at like, no matter your size, no matter your weight, no matter your speed, right? And so it was just, I think what she's doing is really cool, just making running accessible and showing that it doesn't matter how fast you are, how slow you are, no matter what your pace is, like we need to celebrate everyone, and we need to call out the brands that are not down with that, right? And they're going to kind of take that elitist mindset. So yeah, just another plug for her, because I was really impressed with her.
What
Yeah.
brand? And sorry, I
Eric,
don't
I
mean to go
have to,
back
I have
to
to
something
ask.
else, but
Oh,
there's
no,
a
go ahead, Chase.
brand that was
Sorry.
at the running event that they're making a marathon racing shoe for the 3+ marathoner. I don't know if you
Solomon.
got to Solomon. Yes, that's who it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I tried it
specifically
on.
targeted. You tried it on?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty
It
awesome.
here's what I have to say about that.
Okay.
That's marketing, and it's genius marketing, but that's marketing, because you know what that shoe is that shoe is a super trainer. And you know what else is
Yeah.
a super trainer? I mean, the New Balance Super Comp trainer, right? I mean, freak, the Saucony endorphin speed, basically.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah,
you know,
I
like,
mean, super trainers are just, yeah. So that's all it is just a super trainer?
so I mean, it is, I do believe it's a carbon fiber plate. So there, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't dismiss it, because there is a little bit more to it. As far as, I guess, the geometry of the plate is slightly different and supposedly optimized a little bit better for some slightly slower speeds. But in my, like, I tried the shoe on. It is a fun shoe. It is a nice shoe. It's very comfortable. But in my opinion, I think that's more marketing than it is super shoe. And I will say that most brands are going to change, and I started to see this, and I've talked to some of the sales reps. Most brands are going to change the terminology or the marketing around the super trainers to be the everyman super shoe, right? There's some pretty compelling evidence going out there, it sounds like, that super shoes as currently constructed don't benefit the general pop as much as they do like the elite runner. And I think the elite runner, they start to consider that really around that sub-3 range, right? And so to that end, yeah, the super trainer is supposed to become kind of the everyday runner's super shoe that they can access. It was also supposed to be kind of like what the Mach X was with Hoka, right? Same general idea. So I think they're smart because they're the first ones who are calling it that. But I had some conversations with other brands who have said, like, where they talked about their super trainer and said, yeah, this is like the racing shoe for everybody. So I think it'll catch on, but I think they were the first to market with that specific like statement. So yeah,
I kind of wondered the same thing. So yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, we'll see. Again, I'm trying to remember which brands I can't mention when talking about this, but you'll see a number of brands come out this year with a shoe that will be marketed towards the general population, which my opinion on carbon plates, by the way, like I've talked to some physical therapists about this, and some, like, there was a conference that I watched that one of my friends at the local running store here attended, and they talked about foot strike and super shoes and all these things, and they basically said like they should be banned at the high school level, because high schoolers nowadays, they're not wearing anything but like the Nike Dragonflies or even Vaporflies, like high schoolers, right? And they said like they work. Carbon plates work, super shoes work. But if your feet aren't used to them, or your feet are still developing, or you just abuse them and use them far too much, we're going to see a ton of calf and Achilles injuries popping up for those who have been using them too much, because they do like they alter your stride, they alter your mechanics, they alter how your foot interacts with the ground. That's why you get faster. But there is a price to pay for that. And so like I've fallen into the camp now of like I am a once a week max user of super shoes. And if for all of my athletes, if they want to use a super shoe, fine, like they're welcome to. But for a lot of them, I kind of just say, you know, the shoe you wear on race day should be the shoe that makes you most comfortable at mile 26 or mile 13 or mile 5 or 6, you know, depending on your race. Not necessarily the one that makes you the fastest on your first mile, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that, you know, I still use super shoes for like my speed days, but like anytime that I'm going like threshold or faster, if I'm keeping things around marathon or slower, then I try to back off. I do use a super trainer. I do use the endorphin speed 3s. But to your point, I think you're absolutely right, and I may be a great example of it because I've been dealing with calf and Achilles injuries all year long. So it's and something that I'm hoping to do about that. I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I'll throw you my idea your way. I've been looking at minimalist shoes and trying to do some more minimalist running, but we'll just kind of see how that works.
I think, I mean, I've said multiple times on my account and stuff, like, I think minimal running is fine. I think 0 drop shoes are fine. I think 12 drop shoes are fine, right? Like, I think it's, everything is a tool, and how we choose to use those tools is up to us, and we should just find our right balance, right, to make sure that we're able to strengthen, our legs appropriately. And like, I lift in barefoot shoes, right? Like, I don't have the durability, I believe, at this point to be running in minimal shoes, but I would imagine someone like you who ran in college, someone like you who's been running your whole life. Here's the thing, like, if you're dealing with calf and Achilles injuries or issues, right? Like, I can only imagine those who don't have like your same durability and your same history and same like cumulative mileage trying to use some of these shoes that are just hyper aggressive. It's not a matter. Some people like say, like, when you say that, they're like, oh, you're trying to gatekeep certain running shoes. It's like, no, it's not that. It's just like, as runners, we have to pay our dues. Like, and it's not a like you earn the right to wear a shoe. It's like, no, like, your body has to get used to certain things before we can do the next thing. So that's why, like, I preach so much easy running too. It's like, hey, before you can run fast for a long time, you got to run easy for a long time. Like, it's just stepping stones, right? It's just a matter of where we're at in our journey. So yeah.
Well, and we've said it before too on here, those shoes, especially when we talk about the Vaporflies and the Alpha Flies, they were designed when they first came out for people that had optimal running form already. Like, if you did not already have optimal running form and then you try to run in those shoes, you're most likely going to do more damage than good to your body. And people try to use it as a corrective measure too. Like, oh, I have these Achilles injuries, so I need this softer shoe or this carbon plated shoe to help me out through this injury, when it's actually doing the opposite for you. So number one, you need the optimal running form already, for the most part, to be racing in that shoe. And that's not a gatekeep thing at all. That's just the reality of it. It was designed for Kipchoge, right? Like, he designed that
Yeah.
shoe. He has optimal running form.
One thing I often say, yeah, I mean, one thing I often say when people ask me about like just like running injury in general, or like running in certain types of shoes or different things, it's like, you would never, as an athlete who has never been in the gym, go and try and back squat 500 pounds. Like, you never do that. But you might go into the gym and back squat the bar, right? And it's like, that's how I look at certain things, like running high mileage or doing certain levels of speed work or certain workouts, or like running a marathon, honestly, in a lot of ways, right? Like, you would never just like go straight to like the hyper demanding thing. You would pay your dues and you would build your body up, because running's not bad for your knees, but running 50 miles, if you haven't run one, that's pretty bad for your knees, right? Like, it's all about, yeah, like, you got it. We need to be more patient with ourselves, and give ourselves like a little bit more grace in terms of like, just like let yourself develop as a runner, let yourself develop as an athlete before you jump to some of these other like specialized things.
Yep, building blocks. Well, y'all, we're coming up on an hour and 15 minutes. We got anything else for our buddy here?
Yeah, just one super, super important question, Eric, and this could make or break our relationship. So I want you to be aware of this. Have you seen the movie Without Limits?
I don't believe I have. Am I going to be kicked off now?
Maybe, yeah. The story of Steve Prefontaine.
Oh, Prefontaine.
Yeah. So me
Carolyn,
and Jake
you're
are
getting all
big
kinds of
advocates
love
of
on
Without
this
Limits, as
one.
is Craig Ingalls, who was on the show as well. So and Carolyn, have you watched it yet, Carolyn? Come on.
No, okay. I can't find where to watch it online. That's my issue. I'm paying like $20 on Amazon Prime for this. Oh, it's Apple TV. Y'all, it's on Apple TV for $1.
There you go.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
I was gonna say I got
it's
it
only
on
the
DVD.
greatest
I'll
running
mail it.
movie of all time. So
What?
send it to
Not
me.
not to call you out, but it says right here $2.89 on Prime.
It's great to have you on, Eric. Nice to meet you.
Oh. Well, I'll say my excuse is I really have not been a runner for all that long, right? Remember that it probably like 6 years now that I first kind of got into running. So 1998, right? I mean, I wasn't running when I was 6, at least not organized like this.
Well, you should definitely check out Without Limits. It's the story of Steve Prefontaine starring Billy Crudup and Donald Sutherland. I mean, it's fantastic. It'll get you in the mood to run. There's the other Prefontaine movie with Jared Leto. It's not as good in our opinion. Check out Without Limits. So
it is on the list. I will get that done and report back.
Oh God. Okay, Eric. Thank you for joining our podcast. Thank you for joining our Brooks Pro review committee. Okay. It's been lovely to have you on. Okay. Appreciate it.
you just want your Brooks friends wherever you can get them. Anytime there's a Brooks buddy on here. Yeah.
Listen, they're a solid brand.
I know.
Yeah.
I tried. I'm applying to be a Run Happy team member too.
Okay, well, what if they listen to this and hear all the trash you've been talking?
I said good things. Jake's the one that's been talking trash tonight. I said I'm looking at the Ghost Max. I'm thinking about dropping $150 on the Ghost Max. So. Come on now. There.
Oh my heavens. But I'm just saying, I think they're announcing their team next week because they're closing down our Slack group on the 15th. So
we'll see. Yeah, like she said, Eric, thanks for joining the podcast with us. Kind of got off the rails a few times, but that's just how we roll.
Oh,
no, I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a good time.
Before we let you go, Eric, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, Rad Dad Bod TV on pretty much any social media channel. Most active on TikTok. I've tried to get active on Instagram and should eventually get more active on there. And then hopefully soon I will be doing more comprehensive shoe reviews on YouTube. So if that's your thing, if you want to learn more about running shoes, check me out, Rad Dad Bod TV on YouTube as well.
Right on, for sure. Love the shoe tubers, man. I'm a big shoe tuber fan. All right, well, that's it, isn't it, guys? I guess we'll end it for tonight. You guys can find us at RunTok Live on Instagram. You can email us at runtalklive@gmail.com. Check us all out. I'm Chaser No Pacer, Carolyn Levenway, Jake the Cultural Runner, signing off from Denver, and that'll be it. Thanks for watching this episode or listening to this episode of RunTok Live.